order the Tuesday, September 9th, 2025 meeting of the Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission. We will move quickly to item 3, public comment. Is there anyone wishing to address the commission that has signed up?
No, Chair, there is not.
Is there anyone who's joined us this evening that would like to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, minutes, consideration and action on the minutes of the August 28th, 2025 meeting. Minutes are in your packet. Any comments or additions?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh.
Second by everyone. Second by Commissioner Patel, and we'll vote at this time.
Do you guys getting hand?
You'll need to do a hand vote.
Okay, we will hand vote. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 5. We have 2 workshops this evening. Start with item 5A, which is an amendment to the Sugar Land Development Code. Review of and discussion on a proposed amendment to Chapter 2 of the Sugar Land Development Code. And Emily is with us tonight. Good to see you, Emily.
Good. Likewise. Good evening, Commissioners. How are we all doing?
Great.
Wonderful. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay. So in response to City Council directive, the Planning and Development Services staff has been working to update the city's development code and encourage and support redevelopment within the city of Sugar Land. Staff is currently in the initial stages of phase 4 of the project, which will take a closer look at the city's zoning, subdivision, parking, and sign codes. This project also works to support the city's strategic all-in initiatives by creating a more development-friendly regulatory environment and also streamlining the overall development process. And then one development in particular shined a light on the need for this change within our development code, and this project being the Offices of Greatwood, which is a multi-story office park development located off of Greatwood Parkway and US Highway 59. This is a multi-phase development project that broke ground while under the jurisdiction of Fort Bend County, a jurisdiction without zoning, and then was subsequently annexed into the city of Sugar Land at the tail end of 2017. Once annexed into the city, this property then became subject to the zoning regulations found in Chapter 2 of the city's development code. This itself presented to be a challenge to the development, as this project was in compliance with the county's development regulations, as the county only reviews developments against the fire code for compliance, but was not in compliance with the city's development regulations, as the project did not conform to the 2.5-story height requirement of the B1 zoning district. The Offices of Greatwood highlighted the importance of aligning the city's zoning code with the fire code and building code to help clarify the city's development regulations and, again, streamline the development process. And then with that being said, the purpose of this workshop is to discuss the proposed amendment to section 2-92, and more specifically table 2-92.1 of the City of Sugar Land Development Code. The purpose of this amendment is to enhance the clarity and consistency throughout the development code and to, again, simplify the maximum height requirement for the neighborhood business or B1 zoning district. And then this is going to be the redlined version of the proposed changes to table 2-92.1. The only change that's currently being proposed to this table is removing the half-story caveat, with style leaving the numeric height requirement the same. Through this change, we are aiming to align the height requirements established through the zoning with the regulations laid out in the Building and Fire Code, as the Building and Fire Code do not recognize a half-story within their regulations. And then this is going to be the revised version of the table. Again, while the half-story requirement has been omitted from this table, the numeric height allowance for the B1 zoning district remains the same at 35 feet in height. And then this proposed amendment to the Development Code helps to support the city's all-in initiatives, specifically fostering sensitive redevelopment and stimulating economic growth, as this proposed update would allow for the city to create a more business and development-friendly regulatory environment, cultivate and strengthen our relationships within our development community, and help to prepare our city for future redevelopment opportunities that may arise. And then this is going to be the anticipated timeline for this development code update. And then staff is recommending that P&Z, y'all, hold a public consideration and action with the proposed development code update on the October 14th meeting, with the item then later being presented to City Council at their November 18th meeting for the first reading and public hearing, and then again at their second meeting on December 2nd for the second reading. And then at this time, any questions y'all may have?
Emily, before we move to questions from the commission, is there anything in this that you would like us to provide feedback to you on specifically? Anything that staff is wrestling with that we should be aware of that you want our feedback on?
Nothing specifically, but just any feedback that y'all would have, we would relish in it. So just anything y'all could provide.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Smith.
Thanks. Thank you for the presentation. I just had a couple clarifying questions. So by taking this out, you can still have it 2.5 stories, because when you brought in the great wood, was that, it sort of sounded like that's what sort of initiated this change.
So technically, the zoning code recognizes a half story, but the issue is that there is a conflict between the zoning code and the building code. So if we were to omit the 2.5 story requirement, that 35-foot cap per the building code, you technically, if you were creative, still could build up to 3 stories, but it just really depends on like your engineers and design professionals.
Okay.
If that answered your question?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yep, it did. And then is there any issue when you're taking out the from finished grade in that definition of 35 feet?
Staff did not feel that there was, but we could always go back and reflect on that a little bit more so. So any direction y'all would like to give us, this is a workshop, I'd be more than happy to look further into it.
Well, I'm guessing, does that make it any clearer, or is there something then further defined in the building code that says you don't really need that definition?
So we do have height as a defined term within Chapter 10 of the Development Code, so you could always go back and reference that definition for height.
But is there like some kind of definition around finished grade? I mean, I'm assuming that's from the foundation up, right?
So yes, I don't know if that's a defined term in Chapter 10 of the Development Code, but that is a
Okay.
fairly common Palladian architectural term.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am?
Commissioner Bree? No questions. Commissioner Brown?
No questions.
No. Commissioner Hallbrook, any questions? All right. I don't have anything either. Seems fairly straightforward. Thank you for the thoughtfulness, and thank you for putting the red line and then the proposed final version. I assume the table that's, in the last pages of the packet will be what we will be asked to formally approve.
Yes, sir.
Next meeting. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. With that, we will move on to item 5B, which is Lake Point Redevelopment District, review of and discussion on changes to the Lake Point Redevelopment District. And I'll turn it over to Ruth.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. So this is actually another part of the development code that we are talking about, the Lake Point Redevelopment District specifically. So I'll tell you a little bit about the background, go over the changes, and then talk a little bit about next steps and have an opportunity for questions. So as you may recall, we adopted the Lake Point Redevelopment District in December of 2023. It was applied to the former Fleur campus, the 52 acres, plus a little bit more than that. It is in Chapter 2 of the Development Code. It was the new Part 5. And this is the zoning district that sets the standards and the process for redevelopment in this area. We did our best to create an awesome district when we put it together, but we knew it wasn't going to be perfect. And so there have been a couple of times already where we have made some changes to the district, including back in May of 2024, based on some initial feedback that we heard from some folks that were looking to build in the area and a potential developer at that time. And then in May of this year, we made some additional changes. Also, in the same month, City Council approved the redevelopment concept plan for the Lake Point Green proposal and the incentive agreement also with the developer that was purchasing the property. So you may recall that we made a few changes to the district, and it was really largely to align the subdivision regulations and the Lake Point Redevelopment District. And then we also made some changes to, I believe, the design standards at the same time. In the following month, Levitt did close on the property and purchased the property. And so kind of since that time, we've been working alongside them to kind of figure out what the layout of the property is going to be, how the lots are going to be laid out on the site. And as a result of that, have evaluated and identified some areas where we need to further refine the district. And so really the changes that are before you tonight are going to enable us to have that compact development that we envisioned on this site. And so now I'll just walk through the changes for you. So you do have a document in your packet that does walk you through these changes as well. And then you have the red line that you can take a look at. So the first one is related to the regulations for non-residential multifamily and mixed-use development. This is in section 2-118. And so what we did is clarify for front and street side setbacks. There's sort of a caveat in there for where an easement might be present. And so kind of how the maximum building setback would be applied where an easement is present. Similarly, with the middle housing development for front and street side setbacks, we clarified that language as well, and then also decreased the required building frontage from 75% to 60%. If you do have the situation where an easement is present. And then decrease the minimum building setback for front and street side from 5 feet to 0 feet. And this essentially just provides some flexibility because it is a very constrained site. And so it enables the developer to have some flexibility to be as close as they need to be to the front and street side property lines. We also added in this table some additional options for the interior side setbacks for urban homes. So we've added an option for variable setbacks. The way that the code is written right now is you can either have 0 and 6 or 3 and 3. And they have requested to be able to do 3 and 3 in the front and 6 and 0 in the back. And so that is what the option that has been added, and you can see the diagram here that kind of shows you how that works on an individual lot. Also related to middle housing development, we looked at the maximum building height and distinguished between lots that are fronting on public streets and lots that are fronting on mews. Those are, your green spaces essentially. And so for lots that are fronting on public streets, we did increase the maximum height from 50 to 60 feet, but maintain that maximum 4 stories that was already in the code. And then for those that are fronting on the mews or the green spaces, maintaining a 50-foot height maximum, but decreasing it from 4 stories to 3 stories. And we also are adding in a maximum lot width for urban homes. Right now, the maximum lot width is just 40 feet, period. And so we've increased that to 50 feet for corner lots, just to add a little bit of flexibility on those lots where you have the right-of-way there. And then this last bullet here, I did want to point out, removing the minimum density requirement, that got missed in your summary of draft code changes. It is shown in the red line, but it was just an accidental omission. So you'll see that in the next version of that document, but it is shown accurately in the red line. And then finally, in section 2-122, looking at building design for the middle housing type, building orientation and entrances, decreasing the minimum width of the mews from 30 feet to 14 feet, and then making some adjustments to the building transparency requirements. So requiring that facades that face mews and civic spaces also meet the requirements that are for public street facing facades. And so that would be a minimum of 15% transparency, and then adding a requirement for some transparency on alley facing facades. So a requirement of having at least 2 windows on those facades. So that is a summary of the changes that we are proposing tonight. We are anticipating coming back to the commission at your next meeting with a public hearing, consideration, and action, and then following that with a public hearing and first reading at the October 21st City Council meeting. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Ruth. Similar question to what I posed to Emily. Is there anything in particular that you were really desiring feedback from the commission on?
I don't think so. I think I just, would reinforce that, like I said earlier, we anticipated that there would be changes needed to the code when we created it. When we created this new district, this was our first kind of foray into this kind of work. And so it shouldn't surprise anybody. It didn't surprise us that, changes would be needed. Codes are living and breathing. And so it's actually a really good thing that you're seeing us make these changes because we're trying to be responsive to the market, to what we're hearing from our partners. And so, but I don't think there's anything specifically that I would want to call your attention to or ask for your specific feedback on.
Great. With that, Commissioner Smith, any questions?
Thanks, Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first one, where we're increasing the feet by 10 feet on public facing, does that now allow for the plan? Because I know, at least in the high level plan, it was there was some that were lower tier houses in the facing the front. Does this now allow for like townhouses around the rim of the whole area to be like 4 feet and then you're wanting to step it down 50 feet?
Stories, you
How
mean?
does that, yeah, for this, yeah, stories.
So, we were looking at the adjacency to the Muse and wanting to make sure that we didn't have the buildings too
Right.
tall and too close together. And so that was kind of the initial reasoning for reevaluating that. And then the developer had requested that we make that change to the height of the buildings, just to make sure that they had the height that they needed in order to do the fourth story on some of those buildings.
So really where it's not in any, like, okay, around the lake. So I'm thinking there's the road that goes through that sort of, there's an area green space and then
Creek
there's-
Bend, is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
so I think in that initial plan, we had seen some like lower level type homes, like even smaller homes. So what I'm trying to get at is what controls that from the whole area on the outside of Lake Point not being 4 stories? If we allow for this,
There wouldn't be. If you make the change, then they could be four stories, not more than 60 feet, wherever you have lots that face a public street. So that would include
Include that area.
the lots that face Creek Bend.
so you could end up, I mean, I guess the only way we have to try to control that is when a more detailed design comes in, the conceptual plan. Won't we see?
No. This is it. The code is what dictates how it gets developed. So the commission and council saw the redevelopment concept plan, which laid out the land uses and the streets.
Right.
But it's not a PD, so we're not going to be coming back for further
'Cause I think in
review.
that conceptual plan, it was more of a mixed use and in that space. I mean, what I would worry about is that it looks like a fort, right? You have these buildings, they're all 4 stories high that, because most of that Lake Point does face public areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Actually, most of the way that they have laid this out, most of the homes are going to be facing Muse. It's really just the Creek Bend, and then there's going to be, a couple of, like, as you get into the site, close to where the existing Fleur campus is, where they will actually have the public streets. Other than that, the homes are largely facing Muse and served by alleys that are in the rear. And then, I mean, there are some streets that kind of are like spines going into it, but for the most part, they are actually on the Muse.
because it sounds like to me what they're wanting is like for the apartments, right? Maybe for that 4 stories.
Well, and that would actually be,
Because I thought we had sort of agreed that the apartments would be back in that area where there's already a parking garage.
right. And the table that you're talking about with the changes to the stories and the height is just for the middle housing. It doesn't apply to the multifamily.
Which is even more concerning than for me. I just don't think that we would want a 4-story building or large buildings along Creek Bend that would then, it seemed like it would block off that whole neighborhood if we had like a whole line of like 4-story buildings right there. There's, I know there's a lot of green space and I would envision that there's got to be some opening from probably Creek Bend into that wider open area that we talked about in the middle. But if there's no way to control that, then, of course, now I guess we could have 3-story buildings anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the 4-story allowance was already there. It's changing the height associated with it.
I guess it didn't really click with me then because the design, the conceptual design we had didn't have that. But if this allows for that, and then the developer comes in and says, well, hey, I want to, build these tall townhouses or whatever, then that would be okay.
Okay.
I mean, we wouldn't have a way of changing that design.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would be curious to hear if that's a concern that the rest of the commission shares, and we can certainly talk to the developer about that and see what their thoughts are.
And one other question I had on this, so in part 5, the regulations, where they point back to, like the ABC, so you've got building height max and it's C, but then it points back to side setbacks.
Uh-oh.
Commissioner Smith, repeat where you were?
So if you look at part 5, table A,
Yes.
and you've got building height max, and then the regulation is C, if the references is on the next page?
No, it's not.
It's where there's a number of changes? Those
It's not
aren't
on
for
the
that.
next
So
page.
we're missing a page?
No, on the same page, on page 1, you have table 2-118.1, building height max, C. That only applies to the non-residential multifamily and mixed-use development. If you just go a couple rows down, those are the references for that table. So C is airport height.
Okay, I jumped a page,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only other question I have is on the 0 foot, does the change you're making on the, what is it, 5 foot to 0?
For the front and the street side.
Does that mean then that the structure can come right up to the line that, or where you've had like an easement for the pedestrian walkways?
Right,
So
it could be.
butt right up against it now?
It can. More than likely, they will have some variation in the front facade because they'll want to have some overhang on some or even most of their buildings, but that they will have to maintain the clear path for the pedestrian clear zone.
And how much space do we have designated for that?
I want to
recall?
say, it depends on the street that it's on, but I think it's 8 feet. I want to say it's 8 feet.
From the street?
No, just for the clear zone, and then you have another 8 feet for the like parking and pedestrian amenity area.
Yeah, what I'm trying to understand is what if we allowed from like the sidewalk to where the structure would be then? If it's, we used to have 5, how close can they get to that sidewalk, I guess is where I'm
Yeah, it can be up
asking.
to 0 feet.
0 feet.
Yeah, with this change, that's what's being proposed.
Yeah, I'd like to hear other commissioners' input on that too as well.
Yeah,
That's it.
thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Bree?
One kind of big picture question and maybe a suggestion for when this comes to us for a vote.
Okay.
Do any of these changes for the middle housing, any of the setback changes, do anything to the overall density that's allowable for the district? Can you talk about any changes in those metrics if possible?
I mean, and the developer Frank Lewis here, so maybe he can help me here, but I would say what they have run into, because you do have a limited area, right? This is a constrained site. It's not, I mean, it's 52 acres, but there's the existing parks and the trees that they're trying to preserve, and so they're working kind of within these confines that
Yeah.
they're trying to lay out these streets and mews and trying to get the density that we want to see. And so the reason they're asking for that, the changes in the setbacks and the widths of the mews and stuff, is so that they can have the denser product that we were wanting, from this site. Basically, every foot or 2 or 3 or 5 feet just eats into the amount of space. And if we applied the regulations as they are, I think we would lose probably a whole row of homes. And so in order to not do that, these are, these kind of tweaks here and there essentially are kind of allow us to do that more compact development.
Would we be able to get like a more defined ratio of how it's all going to sort of look like when it comes? I don't know if this is the right venue or the next time. Well, I guess the next time was when we're going to vote for it. Would we, because a lot of us, this was revisiting this after months of the work,
Sure.
months ago. And so to echo some of Commissioner Smith's comments on just the way we envisioned it at that point, a visual would be nice.
Okay.
When just to kind of get a feel for what's possible.
Okay.
What the density could look like as a result of some of these changes.
Okay.
At that time. So that'd be my only other feedback in agreement with, yeah.
Can I, in terms of
Yeah.
feedback to the staff, can we put that in the form of something that's actionable for them. Because I'd hate for the next meeting for us to
Yeah, 'cause we're
come
voting on
back and
it.
have,
Yeah.
questions and then get into, kind of amendments on the fly, right? So, anyway, to the extent possible, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
undercut anything.
No, it's a good
if we can just
suggestion.
Put it in the form of suggestions.
I mean, I have a thought that I can work with our partner on, but, they already have kind of a preliminary layout for their phase one, and so we could kind of share potentially what that might look like, just so you can kind of visualize what it looks like. And then they may have an idea of what it would look like if we followed the regulations. And so we could at least just compare kind of phase one, it's a piece of it, but it's this number versus that number,
Yeah.
and kind of why we're looking at making the changes we're making. Does that,
That would be helpful,
okay?
yeah.
Does that seem reasonable?
And that's a good suggestion, sure.
Do you have answers to the questions? Are you okay for Mr. Liu to
Absolutely.
come?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
Come
you.
on up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to do it up here.
Scary.
Just gotta go to the mic.
So let me address Commissioner Smith's questions about the height.
Yeah.
Okay, so we asked for 60 feet to give us some flexibility. Most of these houses, for the most part, will be 3 stories, even fronting on Creek Bend. What we're going to have is actually 3.5 story. And we usually set back the 4th story, so we have a roof deck in the front. So what you actually see is probably going to be 12 foot, 12 foot, 10 foot, so it's 24, 10, 34 plus probably somewhere around 42 feet or so. The current code allows for a 4-story already. So we just wanted to have some flexibility if we wanted to make the pitch taller and things like that. As far as blocking the rest of the houses, I don't care whether it's 2-story or 3-story, the houses in the back is not going to see much. So, it doesn't matter. So that hopefully will answer the question. I don't think we'll ever get to 60 feet. Just give us some flexibility. I know some of our houses can get up to about 52, 54 feet. So that would just give us some flexibility. Let me also address about the building setback lines, okay? The lot, especially with the trees and and just the whole site, every lot is a pie shape, okay? We're trying to save the trees. We're limited by the depth because you got the tree zone everywhere. So I have an option. Either I do 4 rows of houses or I do 6 rows of houses. And I'm limited by my depth. So as it is right now, the townhouses, the reason why they're 3 stories and 3.5 stories or whatever, because my whole depth of those townhouses is only 45 feet deep. That would enable for me to do some living on the first floor for them to have a decent depth. So in order for me to fit my houses, hey, I can't do a garage that's only 15 feet deep. I mean, math, it has to work. And if I do 4 row of houses, I won't make desired density, plus those lots can be a little bit too deep. So I have all those dilemmas that I have to work with. Plus, all these easements, we're still waiting for CenterPoint to tell us what they want in the form of easements. We've been working with them for a long time, but still don't have a clear answer. Now, all these easements are ridiculous. And they said, only CenterPoint or whatever, we are going to be having this space and no one else can be in that space. We have to work with all these different situations. Hey, I hope they're not hearing this. We love CenterPoint.
Frank, if y'all don't mind, I'd like to jump in. Can you explain again the depth issues, the type of product that you would be putting in on a deeper lot? That product, it doesn't take full advantage of the actual property footprint versus if you're able to build on a smaller lot, it's a better use of the dirt, is that?
I'm not sure I know your question. We design these houses certain depth. We have to work with those depths, okay? And each one, except for the townhouses, each one would like to have a little bit of yard space. So that's why all these depths are carefully considered. I mean, it is very tricky because you're really working with inches, and a foot or two makes a big difference. And we actually have laid out these houses already, a bunch of them. I mean, it's not totally done yet. We're still waiting for center point, and because the lot lines are all radial, so we have to figure out where ideally we want to have my zero lot line at in order to get the maximum yard space and all that. So we have not totally mastered that yet. And part of the reason is we are still waiting for center point to tell us how they want to come down to serve the site and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
So there's only 6. You can either do 4 or 6. That's it. If you want to do 5, then you have a situation you have to do front-loading garages. And we don't want to do that. We want to hide all the garages, so that's why it needs to come in even numbers.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything? Commissioner Brown?
Good evening, thanks for coming. I'm excited about this. I do have some questions. I'm going to assume that most of this came out of development came along, your developer came in and took what we had as the base code and came along and said, this is my dream and my vision, and came back to you guys at that point to make the changes necessary to fit that.
Right.
I assume there's no overall objection from staff on any level that I'm reading. It's simply that we go in and make those changes.
Right.
But when you're talking about going from 4 rows of houses to 6 rows of houses, which is a big difference.
Right.
I think what we saw months ago was this development plan that was incredible. We all supported it. This has changed a little bit, and I just would ask that next time, in our packets for next time, I'd like to see a layout. If you've got some conceptual drawings of what this looks like then versus what it looks like now, I think it will help us understand what they're trying to accomplish here. And because when you're talking about one lot and a 3-foot setback, we can visualize it. But when you're talking about 56 acres and I think if we can look at that together, I think it'll help us.
Okay.
So I would ask that we have that. That would be my ask.
Okay.
Next time, as we would get that as part of it. But other than that, I don't have a problem with any of the fundamental changes.
Okay.
And
I want to clarify one point. The overall design scheme has not changed. It's always been.
but the density will.
Huh?
The density will, right?
No, it's always been the 6 rows of lots.
Okay.
Because the 4 rows of lots, then all of a sudden you cut out a bunch of density. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, I would still like to see it.
Oh,
So
no,
yeah.
We do have the site plan.
Good, perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks for putting this together.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Hallberg.
I have a question about
You turn your mic on, Commissioner.
why do you need a split setback of 3 and 6 for like the 0 lot lines? That doesn't even make sense to me in my head.
Well, we do that a lot,
You do
okay?
that a lot?
The reason why we do that a lot is all these houses are served by alleys, okay? And they're all radial, okay, for the most part. So if you think about it, let's say my average lot size is 32 feet, the whole lot, okay? If I have 3 feet on one side, I have a 2-car garage, 3 plus 21, 22 is 25 feet. So I have 5, 6, 7 feet left for my yard. However, if I put it on my 0 lot line sign, I gain 3 feet. So between the 6, 7 feet yard to 10 feet yard, it makes a big difference. And it doesn't really impact my next door neighbor because it doesn't impact them.
I've never seen it before, so I was just curious. What the rationale back is for the diagonal radiuses of each lot. Is that part of what it is?
Well, even the rectangular lot, we do that too. So that way, we just want to capitalize on the extra yard space. And the next question you may ask me, how come we don't do it 0 lot line all the way to the front?
Well, that was why would you want to split this up? Why not just do it the zero lot
Well,
line
the
all
reason
way?
why we want to do it, not want to do zero line all the way to the front is because these houses, unless you have a very contemporary house, typically, traditional homes typically have overhangs. So if I do a zero lot line, I have to cut off the roof. It looks terrible. So that's why we want to maintain the front with 3 and 3, so we can have some overhang. In the back, people don't see it, so we cut it off.
Is it going to change the placement of the windows on the sides?
No,
No?
my garages typically don't have windows
Right.
anyway. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Thank
Anything
you.
else?
No, that's it.
Commissioner Patel? We're good. Commissioner Dawood?
Yeah, I do. Can you go back to section 2-122? There's item A where you reduce it from 30 to 14 feet. So that's what it is. What's you're not talking about depth, you're talking about width of the mews.
Right, so think of the mews as like the street that's not paved. So it's gonna be the house to house, basically, is that 14 feet, because the houses will be facing on the mews. And so it's the distance from one side to the other.
So the distance between one house and the other is being reduced to 14 feet?
Yes.
How do you,
No, ma'am, there's also easements. So really, the houses, generally speaking, give us some flexibility, we can do some in and outs and stuff like that. So I would say, generally speaking, on the average, a house to house in the mews is probably gonna be 25, 26, 28 feet. Because I have easements on both sides.
well, I understand, but if you have easements, the width can accommodate that easement because it doesn't say that the width has to be in excess of the easement, right?
Yeah, we can, I don't know what that would do with the code. In other words, she said that, I guess you, I don't know.
Like, if you didn't have an easement, then you're allowing them to be 14 feet apart, which is not enough to do anything with it. You can't even make a 90 turn into anything. So this,
It's a pedestrian, it's a green space that's just for pedestrians.
right, but 14 feet is nothing when you're faced with a 40, 50, 60-story homes.
Yeah, that's where you would have the maximum of 50 feet.
And most of them will probably be 35, 38 feet tall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm seeing it in my head very clearly. I think on a piece of paper would help everybody else to understand, but the easement would be there regardless, right? And we're not saying that this width is an access of easement. It will include the easement.
Correct.
Yes, this could
So,
overlap with, I think what they had laid out was that the center point easements would be coincident with the mews.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it could potentially be as close as 14 feet. We did have them do like a sunlight study to make sure that
Yep.
sunlight could actually get into any grass that would be planted there, and it did show that it was far enough apart. That was one of the reasons we changed it to 3 stories, though, was to make sure that it wasn't too tall, that it, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
didn't-
I mean, that would have been the next question.
Yeah.
I am concerned about this.
Okay.
I would like to see a site plan to understand it better. I do not see a reason to reduce it from 30 to 14 unless it can be shown that it works.
Do you have a recommendation on what the footage should be?
Well, I think if the adjacent, it depends on what the adjacent height is, max height allowed is. So what is the max height allowed on 2 sides of the mews?
So the way that it's proposed right now is 3 stories and 50 feet.
Right. So 3 stories, 50 feet on 2 ends, and you're just 14 feet apart is a well. Right? So, yeah. I think maybe from 30, if you could reduce it to, I mean, I don't want to say something off the bat right now. I think it's a proportional study, but 14 doesn't work well.
Yeah, I know they were working within the constraints of the site, and so that was
Right.
what was being proposed.
No, it's never going to be 14. You'll be minimum 24 feet. So what
Right.
we can do, change the language and saying that, I don't know how you want to say, minimum distance between the buildings to be 24 feet.
Well, I mean, I would even accept 20, so. I mean, I understand you want to do 6 rows, and obviously the density needs to work, so I don't want to constrict you there.
Yeah.
But I think if you can do your
Thank
own,
you, but we're going to be stuck on 24 feet. That's
We'll take a look at that.
yeah. Also under, okay, so I'm just going to show you my page. This is the page I'm looking at, where all the reds are.
It has a page number at the bottom. What does it say there?
Yes, it does, page 2.
Thank you.
Sorry. So under references, and if you go to C4, the second line where it reads that a 3-foot maintenance easement adjacent to the lot line and within the 6-foot side yard shall be delineated on the plat. And there shall be a right to access a 0-foot building line. How do you access a 0-foot building line?
There won't be
The
a
0-foot building line side from the maintenance easement.
Right. What does this all mean? You're already on a 0-foot building line, and you could have a wall on that 0-foot building line.
Correct.
So how do you then give a right to access it? The right to access the 0-foot building line. What does that mean? I'm not understanding.
Basically, if this is your lot line and your garage, in this case, it would be the garage, the back part of the home is on that lot line, then you have access to your neighbor's property. Essentially, there's an easement, a maintenance easement, so you can go on your neighbor's property to maintain your home. And this is similar to what we have in other parts of the code. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it's the same language that we use in our patio homes and similar situations.
Okay. I just think it's kind of tricky because somebody's going to have to come back into these codes to claim that, hey, I can
Well, that's why we
access.
put it on the plat. That's exactly why we put it on the plat, because it'll get pulled when that survey gets done.
Okay. And then when you talk about increasing these heights to 50 feet or 60 feet, is there any description, or I'm sorry, what's the term? Well, is there somewhere where you describe that 60 feet includes everything? The top roof line, the towers, any kind of gizmo that goes on the roof is included in 60 feet. Because the reason I ask is in the building code, it allows you to exceed that for access and towers and
Yeah, I think
appliances that can be mounted on the roof.
Yeah, I think some of those same allowances exist in the development code as well. It is in the definition of the of height.
So they could be more than 60 then.
With I mean, it's measured from the ground to the middle of the peak of the roof, so.
Yeah, so it can exceed 60, right? Theoretically.
Technically, yeah.
And if you have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mr. Liu said that he was looking for some flexibility. If you have concerns with 60 and 50 feet, we can go back and talk to him and see if we could bring that down a little bit with, maybe we can look at that a little more closely and see if there's any
Yeah, I think
ability to-
practically, and this is for you, Mr. Practically, you may want a 12-foot stud on the first floor to have some nice heights. You may have some coffers and you may build up a little bit. But I think upper stories are going to be that 9-foot stud, maybe a 12, another floor. But I don't see how you get to a 60 and a 4-story. That's 15 feet each floor.
Got the roof, don't forget.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I brought it, because the code allows you to exceed
No.
60 for roof line.
No, we have done some 52, 54 feet. 52, 54 feet with the roof, yes.
Yeah, I think it's getting to be a very tall townhome, middle housing, what have you.
London has townhouses 6 stories tall. New York City has townhouses 6 stories tall.
Yeah.
It's relative.
Yeah, those are my concerns, that's all.
Any other questions, comments? So I appreciate all the feedback, and Mr. Liu, I appreciate especially you being here. It's clear you're committed to working with staff and getting to the right spot on this. This is I'm thinking back to the slide that I think was in Emily's presentation about the commitment to sensitive redevelopment, being a priority, and this is certainly that. So I guess for my part, I mean, I'm very sensitive to the, all the conversation around height and, distance between houses and all of that. I guess the only comment I would add would be that it seems to me that with the unique and kind of creative approach that the developer's taken on this, that they're come with kind of a set of inherent trade-offs.
Right.
And so.
Right.
Anyway, I appreciate the approach the city's taken to work with the developer, so we don't, we can move things forward and not get tripped up on things that do matter. But let's get to the right spot.
Right.
Kind of keep the end in mind here. So.
So
is there
if
anything else?
Yeah, if I may, what I heard is that we'd like to see, we talked about having kind of the site plan or layout for phase 1 and being able to understand what their proposal is compared to what it would be under how it is now. And you'd be able to see in that case kind of the widths of the mews and the setbacks and all of that. And then I think we'll go back and just make sure we're on the same page in terms of the height of the buildings to make sure that there isn't any ability to make that a little bit lower given the way that we measure height. So we'll revisit that with Mr. Liu and his team.
Mr. Chair, quick question. Yeah. Will we be able to make changes at that time at the next meeting if we see something?
You can make a recommendation that is different.
I'm just curious. I just want to make sure this wasn't, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you can always make a recommendation that's different from what is before you, as long as there's consensus around that. So yeah, those were really the two, I think, main things that I heard was the width of the mews. And so I think that, again, goes back to kind of the layout and what that looks like, because I think that was part of a big part of what we were looking at. I will say, you mentioned that we as staff, you're assuming we don't have any concerns because we're bringing it forward. I will tell you that their initial list of asks was much longer. And so we have worked with them to really see what is critical, what can they give on, what can we give on. And I feel good about where we've landed because they've made some changes. We've worked together to make those adjustments and find, what's most important to both of us. And so, these are the kind of the final things that really had to happen in order for us to move forward with the development the way that really it's been envisioned. And so, but we can take a look at those final items and just see if there's any ability to, even if there's a foot or two here that they feel like they can give on, we'll circle back with them before your next meeting and bring that back to you.
Okay. This discussion about the muse width, I think, is very relevant.
Sure.
Perhaps you all can help us create clarity in that discussion and talk about distance between buildings versus this muse width concept.
Sure.
Since we're not all familiar with kind of how the muse, so maybe that'll help us along.
Sure. And they've actually provided us with some like diagrams or kind of images as we've been working through this with them, and so we can probably share some of those as well at your next meeting to help visualize what that looks like.
Can I ask that when you talk about the distance between the buildings, or if you refer to the Muse width, you could also maybe edit the language and say including easements? Because that then clarifies that, that we're not, because if you have easements, then they can be overlapping
Right.
requirements.
Yeah,
They're
I
not
think
exclusive of each other.
I understand what you're saying. I think my concern with including that is you would have to include that in everywhere because that's true for setbacks, that's true for
Right.
everywhere. You
Okay.
know, the easements kind of just get laid where they get laid.
Then maybe a small description somewhere that kind of covers it all, if you know how to fit it in and still seem logical and codified.
Okay,
Okay?
we can look at that.
One more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
So in these diagrams, will it show sort of the layout of where you're thinking the different type of housing is going to go? Is that, because we've talked a lot about townhouses, but we also talked about other types of housing being developed in this area, and it would be, I think, very good to understand sort of where the, developer's thinking about putting those within that area.
Can I, and I think you'll probably speak to this, but my understanding, and I'm prepared to be corrected, is that this is one of the major distinctions between a planned development, a PD, and what we're doing here, which is creating framework in which the development can occur in. So
Right.
I would, for my part, what I don't want to do, or what I would caution against us doing, is putting something in front of us and then saying, well, we actually want, this type of housing here and that type
Right.
of housing here. That's not, my view is that is not what the commission is being asked to do.
Right.
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 I understand that.
Yeah.
It'd just be, I think for thinking about like these changes, it would be good to understand where the developer's thinking that is going to play, within the overall plan that's being put in place for the area.
I mean, I think, the two main housing types that they are looking at right now, and certainly for phase one, is townhomes and urban homes. And so, the difference there is just whether they're attached or not. And the height of the buildings is, whether it's attached or not, it can be the same height. And so I don't know that it's going to make a big difference when you look at the layout, whether, you might ask, is that going to be a townhome or is that going to be an urban home? They may tell you, well, right now we think it's going to be this, but that doesn't,
change.
It could change. It could change. And I think to, Commissioner Lane Dean's point that that's, you will see a layout of the lots when it comes forward to plat.
Yeah.
But at that point, you're really just looking at, does it meet the code?
Right.
And so I think it's a good point that whenever we do bring back these illustrations, that it's really, the intention is not to, it's really to see the code in action and see what it's actually going to look like, so that you can visualize
It's a
that.
perfect description.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. You have what you need?
I have what I need.
Excellent.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6, reports, Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison Report. I don't have anything to report, so we'll move to item B, City Staff Report. Sorry, Lisa.
Caught me off guard. Okay, good evening. I have bombarded you with several emails recently asking for your feedback on several things. So hopefully you have responded already and they're just not in my inbox. I just haven't seen it yet. So a couple of things. So we have upcoming listening sessions that will be happening on September 22nd. That's a Monday. I think y'all's session is in the evening, late afternoon, evening. So we hope that you can all participate if you haven't already RSVP'd. We look forward to you being there. This
Can you
is
say more
as
about the
part
purpose of
a-
those?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is part of a kickoff to looking at our development code and seeing how we can continue to revise and tweak it to be more in line with some of our redevelopment focuses here in the city. So look forward to y'all participating in that. We also sent out a poll.
hang on,
Before you
Lisa.
leave that one, Lisa. So in that email, it said that there's like the last topic, and it said P and Z, and it said somebody from the P and Z would be leading that session?
No.
And
we'll look
I
at
read that
I know
too.
I
I read
talked
that
to-
too.
I talked to Matt, and he goes, I don't even know if Matt's
That is-
gotten the email or seen the email.
That is not the intention, so we'll
Okay.
take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we will have a facilitator. We're working with a consulting group that will be facilitating.
Okay.
Staff will be there, so yeah. No, that is not the expectation, so we'll
Thanks.
clarify that in any
You didn't know you were
further.
leading that session?
It's you. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, yeah. And then, so the next one, we have a survey poll for some kind of housekeeping things that we're looking to change related to how we function on the commission. And then last but not least, for those of you that will be joining us at the state conference, they have finally posted the mobile workshops that are available. So please take a look at those. And if you are interested, please let us know so we can get that added to your registration. Okay? Thank you. Your next meeting will be the 25th, so we'll have at least one plat. We'll be back with the Lake Point Redevelopment District for your consideration and action. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. Motion to adjourn? Second. All right. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.